Kyle DeFore of DeFore Performance Shooting here. I'm in Wisconsin today, and we're going to talk today about optics. So one of the current trends we're seeing is LPVs, or low power variables, and some guys call them LPVOs, low power variable optics, like this Vortex right here and like this Night Force right here, are becoming super popular. A lot of us have been using them for years though, and I'm kind of going to walk through the evolution here, go over a few advantages, disadvantages of the different optics, and let you guys ponder it for a little bit, you know, if you're looking for optics to buy for your rifle. Over here on the right side, this is a Trijicon MRO, one of the more popular red dots. You know, you also have EOTechs and aim points. A lot of people refer to them as RDSs, red dot sights. And this has been the go since my early military days, 1994 to 2004 or so. Red dots were the rage. Typically scopes were reserved for designated marksmen or snipers. But in the past few years, the advent of a true one power scope with a daytime visible red dot has really changed this whole game. One of the things I see in the training industry is that people are very hesitant to go away from an RDS and go to an LPV. And I kind of akin that to in the early 90s when you looked at it, people were very hesitant to go to an RDS. It's evolution, it's technology, and it's just as we're getting better as shooters, both on the manufacturing side with hardware and people like me learning how to use the hardware. So if I look at them both right here, we can get an RDS, all your good ones, your EOTechs, your aim points, and even the Trijicon here, they're going to come in the price point of mid $500, less than $1,000. The advantage, of course, is we have a single plane of reference for aiming. Unlike iron sights, where iron sights we have two planes of reference, is a little more difficult. The red dot sight cuts down on training a little bit and increases accuracy and speed. The disadvantage to that is that if there's any positive identification or PID needed, we can't really do that past whatever our naked eye can do. So as evolution has come along in the gun industry, we look at something right here. This is what I would call, in my opinion, right now, 2018, this is the best buy on the market. It's the Vortex Razor HD. I think this is a Gen 2. And it's a daytime visible red dot, true one power. It goes up to 6 power, and it's hard to beat. You can find these scopes for right around $1,000. So if you look at it, we're not even quite doubling the price point, and what we're getting out of this is the ability to double the platform. So with an RDS or iron sight equipped M4, you're looking at realistically a 200-yard max effective range, and that's if you can positively identify the threat. And we're talking, when I say 200 yards, I'm talking about an actual kill zone shot. I define kill zone shot as roughly BC steel, about that size. Anything further than that with an RDS is very difficult. So just by putting magnification on the same gun, we're now at 400 yards pretty easily on BC steel. And again, I base that BC off a kill shot with the bullet that I'm using, which is, you know, typically a performance round of some kind. So the Razor is very popular. It's a second focal plane scope. That could be a disadvantage to some people, because if they're using the reticle to do range finding and the reticle changes distances as you change magnification, it could screw up your range estimation. What I've found out in the past few years is most people are either using this on 1 power or 6 power, and there's really no in between. Definitely 1 power I would use at close distances, say 10 yards and in, anything CQB type distance, where I would turn the red dot on for sure. And another kind of misnomer that we see a lot in the training industry is guys assume that if you have a tube, you know, like a scope, even though it's true 1 power, they assume you're going to be slower than you would be with an RDS. And I have not found this to be true with proper training. The guys that I train, both civilian and military and law enforcement, that use LPVs, I have never had to change my standards for shooting in regards to speed just because the guys are using an LPV. If anything, I would say if guys think they're slower with a scope that has a daytime visible red dot and true 1 power, the reason they're probably slower is because of training and or how they're mounting the scope itself. So I'm a huge fan of this scope. I've seen it in tons of classes. There are a few units that I train that actually issue this, and I think, and I don't want to, you know, badmouth Vortex in any way, but as far as cheap goes, and when I say cheap, it's like this is the least amount of money you can spend for a quality product, and it is by far a quality product. I'm actually surprised they're able to sell it for the price they're able to sell it at. So this would be my recommendation to a lot of people. Moving on down the line here, this is my rifle right now, and it has the Night Force 1-8 on it, and this is the big boy 1-8, the ACTAR as we call it, slang term. They make two 1-8s. One is the NXS 1-8, and this is the big boy version. The differences are, major differences between these two scopes. Right out of the gate is going to be the price point. You're more than $1,000 more for this one. A lot of people go, what am I paying for? Well, a couple of things, first focal plane, and I got 2 more magnification on there. So the Vortex is a 1-6, the Night Force is a 1-8, so I've got a little bit more magnification, and I've got first focal plane, which basically means an easy way for you guys to look at that if you're in the purchase market is when you adjust magnification, a first focal plane scope, the reticle is going to change sizes as you go from low magnification to high magnification. What that means for you as a shooter is if you're using the reticle for any kind of range estimation, you're actually going to be true no matter what the magnification is. So for example, if I'm on 8 power and I mill something at 2 mils, if I dial down to 4 power, it's still going to be 2 mils width. A lot of guys, it's not a necessary thing. It is necessary when you bump power up and you're looking to use the reticle instead of a laser rangefinder for a lot of your range-finding. So as an example, I am a huge proponent of mill-based reticles. The reason is because any mill-based reticle, but particularly any of the Horus type reticles, the Mil-Rs from Night Force, these reticles can be used very easily to range estimate a target as long as you know its size. And since typically what most of the things I'm doing is either hunting, it's either animals or humans, it's not hard for us to have a known, like we know a man is 18 inches wide, so this is very easy for us to put reticle on there. We know exactly how far he is, and I can go from there. So that is why I'm a first focal plane fan, with the exception of, and I've kind of come to this conclusion in the past 2 years with most of the units that I'm training that are kind of heading in this direction. I think once you bump over 6x, once you're over 6 power, I think it makes sense to go to a first focal plane. If you're staying at 6 power and under, like the Vortex is, I think second focal plane is fine. And that is going to help a lot because budget-wise, you're looking at roughly $1,000, way over $2,000. So it might not be worth it for a lot of people. Obviously, I do this for a living. I'm a pro shooter, so I'll take this. For those reasons. I'll use this both in a carbine class and I'll also use it in a scoped rifle class, where if you look at it, I'm going to set up targets in a varying field. I'll have a close target at 50 yards, I'll have another one at 100, 150, 200, all the way out to 600. So by having a first focal plane scope, I can not max my magnification out. I can have my magnification on 4.5 or 5, and I can see the entire field that I need to cover. And because my reticle stays true, I can do my holds the same way as I could on a second focal plane scope at max power. So those are some decision points you got to make. Other things that are interesting about scopes, one of the things I've been teaching for a while in my classes that helps people out a lot, because one of the things we get is guys come to classes, they'll look at something like on the Vortex here, it says 1 click equals 0.2 MRAD. It's exactly half of that on this one, which on the Night Force, it's 0.1 MRAD per click. And we're talking about, when we say MRAD, we're talking about mil radians or 1 mil. An easy way to do that, if you look at your turret on whatever scope you have, between the whole numbers, so example, between 0 and 1, or between 1 and 2, or 2 and 3, or whatever, you can really tell the adjustments by how many hash marks are in between there. So if I look down at the Vortex right here, and I'm looking between number 1 and 2, I see 4 hash marks. So the number 1, 4 hash marks, and then the number 2. So it tells me right off the gate that it's 0.2 mil adjustments. Obviously it says that on the top as well, but a lot of scopes that we see do not say that. 0.2 mil at 100 yards is roughly 3/4 of an inch. I kind of round it off, so 0.75 an inch per click for this one. Go over here to the Night Force and I look at that. Again, it's written on the top, but if it wasn't, if I go between my numbers here, I have 9 hash marks between numbers. Very busy, a lot of hash marks, and that basically is 0.1 or 1 10 mil adjustments per click at 100 yards. And again, I round that off to about 1/3 of an inch. I think it's actually 0.36 if you mathematically work it out. So just by looking at turrets, you can tell what the adjustment is. I am really big on having both a mill-based reticle and a mill-based turret. I came into the military in the mid-90s. I went to sniper school in the mid-90s, where at the time we were running a mill-based reticle, but we had an MOA turret, and that's kind of, in the business, we kind of refer to that as staying American. You know, we liked inches, and we liked everything to be kind of that, you know, imperial system. It is drastically easier to have a mill reticle and a mill turret. In fact, what I did today with these guys, when we confirmed zero, I came from, I was in the deep south before I got here, so I was at 95 degrees and about 90% humidity 2 days ago when I last shot this gun. So I knew the zero was going to be off based just on humidity alone. And I zeroed my entire gun without going downrange. I took 5 shots. I put my crosshairs where I was aiming. I saw where my group hit, and I look at my reticle because it's a mill-based reticle, and let's just say for easy conversation, it's 1 mil low. So I aim at the target, I shoot my 5 rounds, it's 1 mil low. All I've got to do on my turret now is dial up 1 mil and it's zeroed. Both of these scopes have capped turrets, which again, I'm a huge fan of as long as you have a mill-based reticle. Because I have a mill-based reticle, the holds that I do at different yard lines stay consistent. So just off the top of my head, 77 grain Black Hills, so that's my favorite bullet for distance. I know that when I zero at 100, my hold for a 200-yard shot is 0.5 mil. I know for a 300-yard shot, it's approximately 1.5 mil, and I know for a 400-yard shot, it's approximately 2.1 mil. So again, with a mill-based reticle, I can quickly just hold it. So when people hear us talking about holds, like we don't dial anymore, we do holds. That is the reason why we do holds. It's faster, and how we do holds is simply with that mill-based reticle. So big fan. You know, if I could get one thing across to everybody, what I would say is there's nothing wrong with an RDS, and I train a lot of people, especially LE, that they're just now getting RDSs, and as sad as that is, that's a fact of life. What I would tell everybody at this point, though, is there's no reason if you have an RDS not to just run a 3-power magnifier behind it, because it greatly increases everything about the gun. You're literally doubling the distance of the gun. You know, I would call this gun, in all honesty, and we got to go with this because any weather condition, any lighting condition, etc., I would call this gun with an RDS a 100-yard gun. Most people with naked eye are able to PID any kind of threat at 100 yards. Go to 200 and it's going to have to be painfully obvious that that's a threat, and there's different, you know, degrees of that. Once I go to magnification, not only can I PID at 100 and 200 very easily with 6 power, but now I can shoot the same gun at 400 yards minimum. I'm a huge fan also with these scopes of having a quick disconnect mount. I am not into hard mounting them like a traditional rifle scope. Both of these have QD mounts on them, and that's simply because if anything does go wrong with the scope, and a lot of people, we're not talking about optic failure so much, it could be battery failure, it could be, I've had some issues in the south where the humidity has been so bad in days that it's just fogged up constantly. So maybe I just, for whatever reason, I can't wipe it clean. Anything, I don't care what it is, but be able to get it off and go to iron sights if I have to. So that's kind of my take on LPVs versus RDSs. I think RDSs are kind of the way of the dinosaur at this point. There's absolutely no comparison to these guns right here, especially with distance. Again, 200-yard gun max. Easily, both of these are 400-yard guns. Depending on the bullet, we can stretch that to 600. I would say, you know, in complete honesty, I don't work for any optic company right now. By far, this is the best buy on the market, Vortex Razor. I see them in tons of classes. I see them in tons of units. You've got a mill reticle and turret. You've got a daytime visible red dot. You've got true 1 power. Very difficult to beat. The Night Force 1-8 Actar is the Cadillac version of LPVs right now, in my opinion. Again, first focal plane versus second focal plane. 6 power, 8 power, you know, you're definitely paying a lot more money for that if you need it. One of the other things, you know, we want to look at too is if we look at what makes a second focal plane scope clearer, right? That's one of the things that Vortex Razor fans are always kind of chiming in about the Razor. Is they're like, it's such a clear picture. It's such a clear picture. You're going to find that throughout the spectrum on any second focal plane scope. The reason being is because second focal plane, and I believe it's 2 lenses less that the image is going through. So the image is coming through the objective lens back to the ocular. I believe you have 2 less pieces of glass, and it might be 3, but I believe it's 2 to your eyeball. So you always get this real crystal clear picture. It's another way, if you do this for a living like I do, I can typically pick up a scope and be like, without adjusting magnification to see if the reticle moves, and I can be like, yep, second, first, just because of the clarity. You're not as clear on the Night Force 1-8, but I'll tell you this, for a first focal plane scope, I have seen no equal to this thing as far as clarity goes. It's almost as clear as this one. Not quite, of course, because I believe it's going through 2 more pieces of glass, the image is, to get to your eye. So of course it's going to be a little bit less bright. And we also look at the advantage too, where a lot of people might not understand exactly first and second focal plane with eye relief. One of the things that's great about the Vortex is the eye relief is very, very generous. The reason it's generous is, again, because of the clarity. So we can be a little bit forward, a little bit back, sideways, and we can still pick up that red dot. Again, the first focal plane 1-8 Night Force here, as far as first focal plane optics go, I have never seen a first focal plane LPV with as forgiving an eye box as this. And when I say eye box, again, I'm talking about the distance between the ocular and your eyeball. You've got a lot of room with this thing, more than any other first focal plane I've ever seen. So that's just real quick here, man. We're just out here shooting, training, and you know, just kind of running down optics and my opinion on them. This is the future right now. I would go to it. You can PID at great distances. You can take long shots, which, you know, schools have 100-yard hallways in them. Schools have 200-yard hallways in them. You know, Walmart or your big grocery stores are 200 yards front to back. So I really am a fan of LPVs. I don't run anything else myself right now unless I'm training a unit who is RDS only. And again, it would be my suggestion to you guys, if you're RDS only, to get at least a magnifier so that you can somewhat come up in performance to the other optics. All right, hope you guys enjoyed that. Thanks.